Amandla! 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 Awethu! Amandla! Awethu! Mayihlale phansi ibamba umthetho.
صباح الخير رفيقات ورفاق.
Good morning, dear comrades. Good morning, dear comrades. Good morning in all languages present here today. Thank you very much, comrades, for this energy, this very positive energy. I would like to make sure that the translation is working for all comrades. Can you please test your translation equipment? Do you receive translation? I would like to start by welcoming all comrades present here today in this Congress. I would like also to thank all the organizations and popular movements and organizations present with us in this Congress. I would like also to thank all the comrades who did the Mystica this morning, and from this seat here, I would like to express my solidarity with the Palestinian people, with our solidarity with peoples in India and in Cuba and all peoples of the world. And here I would like to start by launching today's program. I'd like to remind you of today's panel. After this morning session, we will go for lunch. That will be on at 12:30 in the same places in which we had lunch yesterday. You all have your badges, and there are colors in your badges indicating the place in which you're going to have lunch. So please follow the signs on your badges. After lunch at 3 p.m., we will start our topical seminars. And therefore, all comrades have indications in their badges. Of course, number 15 in your badge indicates the day in which you have a special seminar to follow. So please follow all the directions of your group and go to your particular topical session. For example, on the 15th, if you find number 1, follow the program and go to food sovereignty topical seminar. So follow the numbers on your badges and you will be directly guided to your topical sentence. At the end of the day, there will be a cultural evening. There will be also dinner. Here, you don't need to go back to the hotel. There's a barbecue in this evening, and this will be followed by a cultural evening. Something else very important also, as you know, many comrades are taking photos and videos of the activities in this Congress. And I know that you are broadcasting and disseminating these videos and photos on social media. So please use the hashtag related to our Congress when you do so. Another point is about the translation equipment. After the end of the day, please return your translation equipment to the reception front, or directly after the end of this session, please. So these are some morning points that I wanted to start the day with. I would like to introduce myself. I am Comrade Jamila. I'm from Morocco, from the Workers' Democratic Way. It's a Leninist Moroccan party. I'm also a member of the International Secretariat of IPA. I am glad to share this historical moment with all the comrades present here today. I'm also proud of being honored to moderate and chair this session with the comrades present here with me in this panel. We will start this mass session on the organization of the working class. The working class is the class that will seal the deal with the capitalist system. And the question is how can we organize the working class? How can we stay rooted within the workers and the laborers? These are the themes that will be discussed by our comrades present here today. I will move on to the first speaker, who is Comrade Irvin Jim, the Secretary General of the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA. It's the largest industrial union in South Africa and in Africa. Please, Comrade, have the floor.
Amandla. Amandla. Abahlali ngawethu ngengane. Amandla. Viva abahlali, viva. Thank you, comrades. I'm gonna do a simple but difficult task of stimulating a debate. But I think we are many. One of the things we have not done, despite you having been properly welcome and us celebrating your presence, the more we see, the more we walk, the more we see very important leaders of the working class movement, such as Joe Pedro here, that we are privileged to share a platform with this morning. I will ask the conference, for reasons I will explain, to give Joe Pedro a very big hand of applause from the MST in Brazil to be with us and to engage. And I'm gonna try and move very fast and shut up. If anything I know how to organize is a strike. I am privileged to speak on behalf of the Red Militant Revolutionary Marxist-inspired Union, NUMSA, in this very important watershed conference of the dilemmas of humanity. Our union firmly believes that there can be no revolutionary movement forward without revolutionary theory, and that the working class is the only class capable of carrying the revolution to its logical conclusion. We are a Marxist-inspired union because a trade union recruits workers not on the basis of their levels of consciousness. If you are a worker, you carry a scarf tin. If you are a worker, you are paid wages. You deserve and you belong, you are allowed to join a trade union. But we are a union that is inspired by Marxism and Leninism. We are meeting today to discuss how to pursue class struggle under very difficult condition where the working class all over the world continues to be the victim of continuous deep, systematic and structural crisis of capitalism and imperialism. Of course, this crisis has been deepening since 2008. We know now, more than any other time in history, that capitalism as a system has no solution for problems that confront humanity. We are more resolute that it is inevitable that we must advance to build a better world, a struggle to advance humanity, and a struggle to build socialism against the greed of the failed, rotten capitalist system. A system that is dependent on looting and plundering nature and oppressing and exploiting the working class, who are the producers of wealth. The capitalist system also thrives on unemployed workers to keep wages low, who are not organized by unions, and poor rural peasants All this enables the super exploitation of the working class by the capitalist class. In South Africa, we can go back to history here, right back from the Union of 1910, which is why the ANC had to be formed in 1912. English and Afrikaner capital would have come together, and they would have taken, in their union, they would have taken a conscious decision that blacks and Africans are not allowed to be part of ownership and control of the South African economy. Their role is to be super exploited. And therefore, the struggle for resistance, the struggle to fight back, the struggle to overthrow the capitalist system has got roots in our country, but this is the challenge in the rest of the continent. Wherever capital move in terms of capital mobility, we can call it investment when it arrives, but its mission is always to oppress and to exploit and to maximize profit. We're meeting today against the backdrop of an imperialist war that has been imposed by NATO and Russia, presented as Russia-Ukraine war. We are meeting against the bombardment of Gaza by Israel, where the Palestinians have been dehumanized and are being killed like flies. The US, the West, and its media regard Israel as superior human beings to Palestinians. Palestinians are being demonized and are called beastly animals. Their lives are therefore disposable. This is done to generate a consciousness of acceptance of the fact that this human being must be violently exterminated. All capitalist and imperialist wars impact all human beings negatively. Most negatively affect children, women, and elderly, the sick, and economies such as Africa, the most ravaged by capitalism. Our continent continues to be at the bottom of the food chain. As a union, we are proud to have sustained our participation in the IPA. Our preamble calls on the working class to set aside all prejudice and unite. This is a very important issue for us. We could not organize workers without first being clear that workers, without making a call to workers, that workers must set aside all prejudice and unite. This to us is very important. I don't know how to define prejudice. Prejudice can be how you look at other people. Prejudice can be about what right you think you have to love and hate other people. Prejudice, you can say, I don't like him for strange reason. For me, he's not impressive. And on the basis of that, you can cause divisions and create problems. Why? I am mthandi shem. I don't know how to explain that. So our preamble does not allow any member of our union to behave like that. So you join the union voluntarily. It is not the union that joins you as a member. You join the union. And the union, the first clarion call to members, it says, before we can do anything, you must know you must set aside all prejudice and unite. NUMSA is founded on the principle of unity of the working class and combating all forms of prejudice and discrimination. Recognizing that capital is international, NUMSA believes in promoting international unity of the working class of the world. That's why we're part of the International People's Assembly. The NUMSA Constitution charges us to abolish exploitation. This is a preamble of the union. We build international solidarity with working class formations, progressive social movements, community organization, and revolutionary political parties. We do this because we are convinced that socialism cannot be built in one country. There has been no time in the history of the world struggle for socialism than now that to prioritize building organization of the working class. In other words, one submission we're making in the Congress, we're saying today there is just no better cause like a cause of building organization of the working class. There has been no time in history of the world struggle for socialism than to prioritize building organization of the working class. We must strengthen our resolve to build organizations of the working class. The working class needs its vanguard revolutionary leadership. The working class must produce its advanced organic and intellectual detachment that subordinate itself to the pursuit of socialism. We believe that the fundamental contradiction of capitalism is the contradiction between labor and capital, between the working class and the capitalist class. The contradiction is also about which class owns and controls the social surplus the working class produces. This contradiction can only be resolved by a socialist revolution. The working class are the producers of wealth, and yet they do not own this wealth, which is why our struggle must continue to be about ownership and control of both means of production and the value of our labor. The question of ownership of the means of production and what is produced, which is called the property question, is at the heart of the class struggle and the struggle for socialism. We must humbly accept that there is no replacement for revolutionary agitation of the working class, raising levels of consciousness, mobilizing and organizing them into their organization. The working class is a material carrier of society. We must work to raise working class revolutionary consciousness so that the working class must see itself as a class for itself. The class struggle is the only guarantee for fundamental social change. We must defend the gains of the revolution.
يجب أن نستعد للثورة من خلال الاستعداد وجعل 30% من سكان العالم يسعدون لمشابهة 70%، ودول مثل روسيا وسوريا وزيمبابوي وكوبا وفنزويلا هي قد عانت لعقود من العقوبات.
One of the resolutions we must come up very clear with is that the United States cannot continue to be a police of the world. It can't at willy-nilly just decide that the people of Cuba will continue to be burdened by vicious sanctions when they didn't bomb anyone. They simply took a decision that they are advancing humanity, Ubuntu, against greed. For that, they have been basically subjected to sanctions for decades. So this conference must actually make an issue about this fundamental. And we must focus to US, we must challenge Biden that it is about time that US must step back and stop these sanctions that are basically continuing to impoverish Venezuela, which is rich, which has got all resources, which can smash poverty, which can be part of international global struggle for solidarity with the people of the world. But because of this sanction, these countries continue to suffer. Our comrades from Zimbabwe, they continue to be subjected to poverty, unemployment, when that country is very rich. For simply Mugabe gave them enough chance to say, address the land question. When he moved in, they decided to punish Zimbabwe. South Africa itself is under threat of removal of AGOA because of our political posture of taking neutral stance on the NATO war against Russia. How then do we build organization of the working class today in today's contemporary political and ideological challenges? We're submitting that separated by rivers and forests, we must strengthen our resolve in building militant revolutionary organizations of the working class that are prepared to campaign in a coordinated fashion for a revolutionary agenda. Workers in the working class expect our formation to take up bread and butter issues that affect them and take up campaigns to make sure that those social ills that capital continues to unleash to them are basically addressed. In South Africa, like everywhere else in the world, there is absolutely no replacement for dumping of neoliberal policies. The Washington Consensus, imposed by the IMF and the World Bank and the World Trade Organization, basically all of those policies, we demand that they must be dumped. The working class of the world must be mobilized to fight against defeat of neoliberal structural adjustment program and all austerity measures. The world working class must fight and win the struggle for free quality education, decolonize socialist education, and healthcare, among other things. We must fight for a socialist ownership of land, decent housing, free and reliable electricity and water. Capitalism reserves the worst and inferior infrastructure for the working class everywhere in the world. And yet it is the working class who build this infrastructure. We must aim to change this reality. Ultimately, we must not only fight for a revolutionary socialist agenda, but we must also aim to win the hearts and minds of young people, women and people of all sexual orientation. Can I repeat, of all sexual orientations, and all their rights must be protected. Traditionally, working class revolutionary organizations have not paid sufficient attention to the role and power of arts. This is very important, comrade things. We might probably recall you from China for this. Traditionally, working class revolutionary organizations have not paid sufficient attention to the role and power of arts, sport, culture, film, theater, music, and today's social media as tools and resources for organizing the working class must be utilized. So we're saying we need to break new ground, comrades, in this particular front. It is about time our working class organization also prioritize formation of choirs, sports, clubs, theater groups, political museum, art clubs, music clubs, and so on, as an integral to the working class struggle against capitalism and for socialism. We have a fundamental responsibility and a task to conscientize cultural workers to raise their consciousness as part of a socialist revolutionary working class culture. The struggle to socialize the products of culture, labor in itself, is an important aspect of class struggle against capitalism. The struggle for socialism is the only way to build genuine, non-racial, non-sexist, non-democratic, non-homophobic, and democratic society. In other words, what you have not won in the base, which is the economy, you cannot win it in superstructure, which is politics. But for that, the working class cannot champion this struggle alone. The advanced detachment of the working class must provide leadership, must be in the trenches to say, how do we make sure that those who are economically marginalized, landless, dispossessed, are basically affirmed into ownership? Because this is the only way of changing power relations in society. It is impossible to win the struggle for socialism without organizing working class. To organize a working class, you need revolutionary theory and revolutionary program. That's why we must be prepared to debate and discuss, because that's the only way we can raise our levels of consciousness. But we must also be prepared to learn from the working class itself. They must be our teachers. We must agitate them. But when they talk back, we must learn and learn, lesson, and grow. Ultimately, we must work to produce a revolutionary leadership of the working class, because the crisis of the working class is a shortage of socialist revolutionary leadership. Comrades, this is a fact. Both subjective factors and objective factors are ready for the revolution. What we need is working class leadership that is prepared to mobilize the working class for class struggle. The Dilemmas of Humanity Conference must advance and continue exploring both traditional and innovative revolutionary methods of organizing the working class for socialism. There is no one formula for all places and all times. What does this mean? We must study the concrete condition in which the class struggle for socialism are playing out and advance the correct theory and practice for socialist revolutionary organization of the working class. For instance, for our comrades in Tunis, about whether China is driving a socialist project, I know that we debated this question in the last time we met. But my suggestion to our Tunis comrades is that I think we must take a trip to China, all of us, and really walk and really learn what China is doing. From where I'm sitting, there is no country in the world today that is basically proceeding to address the interests of the working class like China is doing. And I'm just saying, maybe to debate far away from China is a problem. But NUMSA and Tunis, we must have our own trip to go to China. Amanta! Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Irvin Jim, for this intervention in which you emphasized the need for us to be really rooted in the working class in order to raise its awareness about in order to raise its awareness towards going for a revolution. I would like to emphasize also that capitalism is being very creative in its forms of controlling working classes and proletariat. So it's important for us as socialists and as holders of an alternative project to be also creative in our organizing in order to raise the awareness of the working class and in order to accompany the working class and look for other alternatives that were mentioned by Comrade Irvin, like sports club, artistic, cultural alternatives. We know that capitalism really uses all its mechanisms to exercise its hegemony over people's minds and consciousness. This is why we need to use the same tools and techniques, and we have to be everywhere in all fronts. I will move now to the second speaker, who is Comrade Ana Priscila Alves. She's an activist in the Marcha Mundial das Mujeres in Brazil. She is also part of the students' union in Brazil. You have the floor, madam.
Bom dia, companheiros, companheiras.
Good morning, comrades.
I wouldn't be able to start in any other word unless speaking about our comrade Nalu in this moment.
Até porque eu sei que o que você...
Because I know that those that you want to listen to now, it's not myself, but about the movement that has this international, that is fruit of a life of Comrade Nalu. It's been a week we lost our comrade, and this is a moment that's very hard to us, and we know that's very hard to all those that struggle in the world, that met her, that have known her dedication, her willingness, her efforts, and some part of her history. We have been received solidarity from all over the world. We have been receiving your energy. We feel this from Brazil, but also we've been yesterday gathered in our international meeting here, and the comrades have also felt the empathy of all. They were meeting and keeping alive the legacy of Nalu. And we continue the task that Nalu had led us, which are great tasks for all of us. And I want to bring here two reflections that she used to bring to us. First of all, the importance of the dimension of the building of the international struggle. This socialist and feminist struggle, anti-systemic, must be international. They must take place here with the comrades of throughout the world. And the second aspect that I want to mention, rescuing continuing this from Analu, is the importance of the process. The importance of the process, not only of this space that we are building today, but the process that had brought us up to here, and the process that will unfold from the space where we are in now. This is the most important. It is as important as the space where we are in today. Talking about the organization of the social class, the working class, we must remember the conditions in which the workers is now. Today, our organization is a response, and it's a construction of alternative answers to transform today's conditions, our reality. Yesterday, I was speaking with our comrade Giovanni, who was doing here the imperialist cosplay. He has this guise of an imperialist. And we're speaking about the scenario of the social movements in which the struggles are building. In Brazil, we had a military dictatorship during the 70s and during the 60s and the 70s, and then social movements arose, such as the MST, the Unique Center of Workers, the Union of Workers, CUT. It was an important movement, a moment in time of the building of the social movements. Yes, slower, please. And then later on, a moment arose where imperialism imposed onto us a globalization process. This globalization process was a way of internationalizing even more neoliberalism and the precarization of our lives. In Latin America, mainly, they tried to impose onto us the ALCA, the Free Treaty Agreement. There, the organization of the social movements took two roads. Some movements, social movements, thought that this could be positive, that the agenda together with the UN would be good. But on the other hand, another group thought that this was not good, that this was very similar to conditions in which we already were undergoing, and that such projects try to put us under the condition of subordinates. And in order to understand the importance of giving an answer to this, understanding that the UN wouldn't represent us, they wouldn't bring our struggles, and that the struggle would come from the workers. And in this context, that the Marcha das Mulheres, the Via Campesina, and other internationalist movements of struggle arose, understanding that if oppression came onto us in an international way, in a globalized way, our answers, our socialism, our feminism should also be international. So in this process, we see that today it's another turning point, another inflection of the capitalist system. There's a new organization, and today we visualize that the capitalist system not only harms workers. The conflict is not just capital labor. The capitalist system goes to inflict our lives. Capitalism is not compatible with life, and this is what we see today, our comrades in Palestine facing, and showing us that capitalism is not compatible with life. In the last period of the pandemic, we have also observed how capitalism is incompatible with life itself. While in our countries, people were dying, there were already a vaccine ready, and the same 10 countries had access to that vaccine. At that period in time, we understood that the struggle to break the patents, the struggle against the international pharmaceutical companies was also a solidarity struggle, a struggle of the working class. The pandemic period of time was really hard and reshaped labor, and it was even harder onto women. If on the one hand, we saw a deepening of the Uberization, not only in gig economy, in platforms, in virtual platforms, but also in the flexibilization, in the precarization of labor, and the possibility of building dignity in labor. And even in these precarious conditions, women were exposed of this labor market. In Brazil, 99% of the people that lost their formal employments were women. 96% were women. And today we continue in the same way. We have much more men in the labor force, economic active, than women. During the capitalist crisis, we say they are needed for the profit, and they are needed for capitalism to reshape that exploitation chains, and the exploitation of labor, of women's labor, is part of that. Crises come together with an austerity policy, reduction of state, reduction of the health system, reduction of the public education system, reduction of the welfare system. When the market expels us from the labor market and the states comes out of these tasks, are not accountable for this. This is a message for women that they want us back into the home sort of labors, taking care of the children, of the elderly, and also of the men that are in this working labor market, which is more and more getting people sick. So the system says that this is a work of the women, taking care of the household. So wage labor is not a rule, not for the Global South, neither for the women. Here we have many informal labor, not only informal but unpaid. Women conduct a series of works that are unpaid. This brings to light the contradictions of capitalism, such as reproduction, construction, public-private, reason, emotion. Those are dualities that are false. They are conducted to invisibilize the free work that women conduct. We understand that the reproduction of life, they sustain economy. Either paid or unpaid, it's sustaining economy. This assumption that women are those that are responsible for taking care imposes onto us a precarization throughout the world. The capitalist racist system and the international division of labor. This is what it creates. And therefore, our struggle, the women's struggle, has this vocation to be international. And this is also because the feminism that is capitalism dyed in pink colors does not serve us. For us, feminism must be people's families and dismantle the basis of capitalism that oppresses us throughout the world. And therefore, we propose an alternative of an economy that is a feminist economy, that puts life in the center, that understands economy as the set of tasks that we conduct and make society continue to work, that God ensures life. We understand that economy must put life first on top of profits. And understanding that the conflict of capital versus lives is at the base of the structure of our society. That's why we are building alternatives in our territories. And during the pandemic, we realized that it was needed to name the oppressors, understanding that today in all our territories there is a transnational offenses onto us, pharmaceutics over health, mining over our territories, Coca-Cola stealing our water, transnational companies' attempts against our lives. And women offer an answer, and they are the front line of this resistance. And we have been seeing this in a very important manner. We are giving answers against the offenses of the transnationals. Vijay yesterday mentioned the experiences of the men and women, experiences in cooperatives in India. And here in Africa, we see the importance of the mystic. In Brazil, we have solidarity economy, the different experiences that are being developed against the capitalism and this transnational attack that oppresses us. In the whole world, we must understand that if there is a conflict of capital against life, that if such companies advocate for capital and profit, we women and the labor class must advocate for life. This is the line that must organize us. And when we look to the alternatives in our countries, we remember that this is the challenge of our time in history. If in the age the social movements arose, were created against the process, struggling for democracy. Now, and then in the 90s, we struggle against globalization. Now it's time to understand the reorganization of capital and struggle against this today, to build socialism today in our time in history. The system that kills us can no longer endure. And once again, bringing the theory and practice that Analu used to teach us, something that she would always teach us repeatedly, was that the answer for the problems and the dilemmas of humanity lie in the labor class. It is in our day-to-day, in our movements, in the alternatives that we build every day in our territories. And that's why it is the spaces of exchanges, of gathering forces, and international meetings are so important, so that we may understand the alternatives that the social movements, that the women, that the labor class are building in their territories, so that we can understand how to dismantle the material basis of capitalism. The answer to this is here, in these formulations, in the articulations that we are building, the resistance movements that we are creating throughout the world, change the world. This is our task, to change the world, to change the lives of women, and changing the life of women to change the world. And this is why we continue in our march. And we will continue until all of us are free. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much, comrade. Thank you very much, comrades. I was asked to speak slowly. I am sorry. I find it difficult to speak slowly. Thank you for addressing the feminist struggle and its role. There is no development without the liberation of women, and there is no liberation of women under capitalist systems. Now I move to the third speaker. I'd like to ask comrades to repeat this slogan in Arabic language. Please follow me. I would like you to say Nadil. When I say Nadil, ya Munadil, please say Nadil. Please repeat Nadil. 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 You say Nadil whenever I sing. You say Nadil. Nadil, ya Munadil. Fight. Fighter. Nadil. Can you please stand up? Can you please stand up, comrades? Nadil, ya Munadil, fight. You work against imperialism, against colonization, against imperialism. Nadil, fight. Fight. Fight against imprisonment. ناضل, fight. شنو? Fight against capitalism. All power to the people. Thank you very much, comrades, for keeping up with me. Thank you. Thank you, comrade. Now we're going to move straight away to Comrade Peter Mertens, who is the Secretary General of the Workers' Party of Belgium. He's also Member of Parliament and Municipal Councillor since 2013. Comrade Peter, please come to the floor. Thank you.
I'm Peter from Belgium, from Workers' Party of Belgium. And in behalf of the Workers' Party, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers of the dilemmas of humanity. Because coming from Belgium, coming from Europe, it is a big ball of air, literally, a little bit today, but mostly politically, ideologically, and the fact that the International People's Assembly is organizing these kind of meetings has all our respect, because there are a lot of organizations that are talking about bringing together experiences, and there is the IPA who is doing that. So all the respect to the organizers and all the volunteers that makes this event possible. Thank you very much for this, comrades. I will start about Europe, and I say a little bit about nostalgia. And that is because maybe after World War II, we had these forces in Europe with strong trade unions, with a strong tradition of class struggle, and with a strong tradition of class-based parties. And then there was Thatcherism. And then there was neoliberalism. And it was an attack on the trade unions. It was an attack on the working class movement. It was an attack on the class-based parties. And we lost some. Yes, we lost some. We were in defensive stage in Europe for a while. So what? So what? That's the situation. I want to say this because there are some persons that say, back in the days we were strong. Back in the days all was good. But nostalgia, in my opinion, can be also an enemy of the future. Nostalgia, only looking back to the big, strong face, can also be an enemy for taking the needs of working class today seriously, for organizing, mobilizing, educating the working class today as it is, not in an idealistical form, the working class, but the working class as it is. And the working class today also in Europe needs parties, needs trade unions, needs mass movements that tackle the needs of the working class as it is today, and not mourning in some kind of nostalgia. I wanted to say that, so what, that we have had some defeats. Everyone in capitalist society wins some and lose some. There is no victory that is total in capitalism. Socialism is the stage where the victory is total. In capitalism, it will always be some win, some lose. That is life. We don't have to mourn about this, we have to tackle it as it is. So the fact is, we live in a class society everywhere in this world. Capitalism creates divisions based on your role in production, whether you have to sell your labor or you can live off the fruits of the labor of others. That's a class division, and it matters. What is your chance to pay a higher education for your children if you're coming from a working class family? You cannot afford higher education. What is the chance to get a good health care when you come from a working class family, or when you're working 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour shifts, night and day? Even in Belgium, working class people live 8 years less in good health than people with a higher education. 8 years of difference in good health, life expectancy in Belgium. It does matters. Also, your access to the justice system. If you're a son of a banker, if you're a daughter of a banker, of a lawyer, of a judge, of course you can get away in the justice system. If you're a son or a daughter of a working class family, you cannot get away with it. You will be in jail when something happens. Class does matter in every aspect of society, comrades, but you all know that. You all know that. I know it. I repeat it because there are some people, some intellectuals, and they say we live in a post-industrial society. Whoa. We live in some kind of post-industrial society where there would be no classes. Whoa. It's very difficult to come post-industrial and there was no. But who is building the ships? Who is building the houses? Who is building the chairs you're sitting on? Who is building the microphones? Who is creating everything in society? You know the answer. It is not the ruling class. It is not the capitalistic class. It is the working class, comrades. The working class is the creative class. The working class is the class that builds things. The working class is the class of the future, comrades. And in truth, the world of today has never been as industrialized as today. We had the commemoration of the Communist Manifesto of Marx and Engels that was written in Brussels. One good thing that happened in Brussels was a Communist Manifesto in 48. And at that time, Marx and Engels, they wrote about the working class. But when they wrote these words about the working class, not even 1% of all workers worldwide was industrial working class, neither in Europe. Not even 1% at that moment. But Marx and Engels already saw that the working class, the industrial working class, was going to be the class of the future. And 100 years later, in 1950, it was 15% of all workers worldwide who works in the industrial production, 15% in 1950. And today it is 33%. 1 on 3 workers worldwide is working in the industrial production or in the services around the industrial. 1 on 3 workers worldwide. Never in the history of capitalism this society was as industrialized as today. That's the reality of the situation. The production also became internationally organized. I don't know whether you remember the Ever Given. The Ever Given was this big vessel with containers that was stuck down in the Suez Canal, I think 2 years ago. It had 17,800 containers. And it was stuck in 45 degrees, so no ship, no vessel could pass it. And in 3 days, there was the biggest maritime traffic jam of history. There was 400 ships that were blocked, 400 ships, with cement, with oil, with semiconductors, with all the capitalist production needed. All these 400 ships carried all the components of the transnational production change. And like in our country, Volvo factory had to shut down a few days because there were not semiconductors available. They were in the Suez Canal, blocked by the ship. And why am I telling this? I'm telling this because of the international production of today. It is one production chain worldwide. If you get this big screen or the computer you're using, how many people works together on one computer? From how many countries people are working on the same computer? The production scale today is international, more than ever. And that is important to realize, because the production is international, and the same capitalists who organize these productions on an international planetary scale, they want to build walls among the workers. They organize a social production on a world scale, and at the same time, they want to try to build walls among us. And we have to break these walls, comrades. There is more working class than ever. There is an internationally organized production larger than ever, and there is also a global class war. And in July, I saw a little intervention of a CEO of an Australian luxury housing company, an investor. Tim Gurner is his name. It's only 1 minute. You can see it in YouTube. It's very educative because he's a very honest man, Tim Gurner. Because what did he say? So a CEO was saying in July, we need to see pain in the economy, he said. And he continues, it's not me speaking, it's Tim Gurner speaking. The COVID pandemic has caused a shift where workers were feeling themselves important. Workers were feeling themselves important. And they think the bosses have to listen to them. Big problem. And so he says, he continues, this dynamics has to change. And we need to see pain in the economy. We need to see the unemployment rise. And that is Tim Gurner in July, and he's not an exception. Yes, he's an exception because he's honest. He's saying what they are doing. He's saying in the COVID period, the workers thought they were important and that has to stop. We will stop it by creating pain in the economy. We will cause pain by raising interest rates, and then we will see unemployment rise. And that's a class war, and to get pain. Secondly, the second link is the second attack is linked to that, and that is because they raise interest rates, the debts are becoming more expensive. Everyone knows it. Certainly all the countries in the south of this planet, the debt crisis will continue, and these debt circles will continue. And at the same time, they're raising austerity programs to pay for this debt. In the south and in the north, in Europe, from January on, there will be austerity 2.0. Again, 2 years of austerity to pay for these interest rates, to pay for the capitalists. That is before us, and that's an attack. That's a class war. And the third thing is linked with the war in Ukraine. So coming from Europe, Washington forced Europe to take sanctions against Russia. I will repeat that. Washington forced Europe to take sanctions against Russia. They cut off the gas coming from Russia, from Gazprom. But the whole German economy was built on cheap gas from Russia. And so by following Washington, the European Union shot in its own feet. Because who is now in recession? Germany is in recession. By following what the United States was saying, the European Union is becoming in a recession because of this war. And it continues because now we are before the face of militarization of the economy. They want every country to raise the money spent on weapons. They are forcing every country. But every fighter jet produced, that is 1,000 schools that are not built. Every fighter jet that's produced, that's 1,000 schools that are not built. Every tank that is produced, that is 10,000 health workers that are not engaged. Every cent that's going to the war economy is a cent that's not going to healthcare, to education, and to the people. And so if we want to react to this class war of the establishment, we have to react also against the war and against the sanctions against Russia, and we have to act also against the United States and Washington forcing up every country, also Europe, to following their politics, comrades. So, what is the situation of the class struggle? I will finish with that. Also, in Europe, we have to mobilize, we have to organize, and we have to educate, and we have to construct a counter-force against this aggression. And it is possible. It is difficult, of course it is difficult, but it is possible to construct a counter-force, also in Europe. Last year, I was in London, and I was speaking with Kat, and she's a nurse. And she was never on strike on her life. And she said, well, it's just not into me. I'm not the striking type of person, Kat said. Oh, I'm not striking. And last year, she went on strike for the first time in her life, together with 100,000 nurses and doctors in the NHS, in the medical system in the United Kingdom. And with these nurses, there were also the postmen, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, the RMT, the railway workers that went on strike. And they called it the summer of discontent. And it went on in the winter of discontent. And it continues today in the next summer of discontent. And it is important. Why is it important? Because there is this counterforce that exists. The working class is not that, and the class struggle is not that. And we have not only to support these struggles, but we have also to create a narrative about these struggles. Because nowadays, in England, there are more industrial and social actions than in the 1970s with the miners. More strikes today. But we have this collective memory of the 70s and the struggling period. We have to recreate also a narrative and to support all these struggles also on a cultural level. Not only on the immediate struggle level, but also with movies, with poetry, with whatever. And we have to reconstruct all the struggles that are going on. I missed the opening conference yesterday here. And it's a pity because I heard it was very, very inspiring with the Palestinian resistance in center. And there was a big dynamic, so I'm sorry I missed. But I missed it because in France they were on strike. Yeah. The airplane, the airplane didn't take off. There was a strike. There was a nationwide action day. And in fact, in France, this year alone, there were 3.4 million people on strike. 3.4 million, 4 months, with youth, with all sectors in France, around the pension questions. And in France, this year, there were more people on strike than in 1968. I will repeat, more people on strike. And I'm just saying, we have to support these strikes. We don't have to repeat all these calls, the working class is dead, Europe is fucked up. No, the working class also in Europe is alive. And we have to support these working class struggles also in Europe. And if we are able to link what is happening here in the IPA, what is happening in Brazil, what is happening in South Africa, what is happening in India, with what is happening in the summer of discontent, with what is happening in Europe and in the United States. If we can link together, we are very strong comrades. The working class is an international class. We are an international movement. We will win only when we stay internationally, comrades. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا رفيق بيتر.
Thank you, Comrade Peter. You've talked about many important issues, especially that we're witnessing lots of dilemmas within the capitalist system, which will inevitably lead to a revolution against the capitalism system and the revolution. So capitalism is talking about the idea of the death of ideology. If this is true, why is the capitalist system scared of any socialist party coming to power? Why there's a siege on Cuba? Why socialists are being forced to remain silent. If socialism is just an illusion, let us live our illusion peacefully. But this is not true, because capitalism is aware that the alternative to it is socialism, and that it will inevitably burn into ashes. It will vanish. Thanks to our struggles and unity, as our comrade said, with our nationalism. Not within one country, but within all parts of the world, involving all nations. It should be spread worldwidely. As socialists, we should be wherever the working class is and wherever there is injustice. Our comrade João Pedro once said, in Brazil, capitalism is witnessing a crisis, but capitalists do not live in crises. They get richer, and the poor people get poorer, and they are always struggling. So, comrades, we only have struggle as our weapon, and we should use our weapon wisely and more often. I will now pass the word to our comrade, João Pedro, the last speaker for today's mass panel. He's one of the founders of MST, Landless Workers Movement in Brazil. He took part in building many social movements in Brazil and other countries. You have the word, João Pedro.
Good morning, comrades. We are all very happy to meet here in South Africa. In this moment in history, this historical moment that connects many experiences of the working class in several continents of the world. First of all, I want to thank the hospitality of our comrades of South Africa in the name of Brazil's delegation. And I want to suggest that the Brazilians stand up so that we give a hand of applause together to the people of South Africa. I want to take the opportunity to hand the homage that the comrade Priscilla mentioned to our comrade Analu Faria, who passed away last week, that would be here with us. Analu was a great warrior, feminist of the working class. She helped us building ALBA in Latin America, the Women's March, Global March, and our articulation of the International Assembly of the Peoples. She left a legacy, an example of internationalism and militancy. Well, here during these days, we will exchange ideas and exchange experiences, share reflections. Throughout these 5 days, I think that at each moment we will learn a lot. And each one of our interventions, I believe, add to one another. And it impresses us the unity that has been manifesting already in this short period of time. And the unity that we are building in the IEP, it has a greater meaning because all of us here only have one commitment: to struggle for the liberation of the working class and defeat capitalism. Yesterday and throughout our events, preparatory events, we have been reflecting upon the structural crisis we are undergoing, a very complex historical period of time. Because if on the one hand we have the crisis of the capitalist system that increases more and more the problems of humanity, both the environmental crisis or the social crisis or the humanitarian crisis. And then on the other hand, we are also undergoing a period of time of crisis of the working class organizations. Crisis that we may say a crisis of a project. We are also undergoing a crisis that is the result of the descent of the mass movements. It is true that there is social struggle in all our countries. Our comrades from Europe brought about many examples that illustrates that. Nonetheless, on an international level, we are not undergoing a period of a census of the mass global movement against capitalist system. The social struggles still are at a level of defense, defending rights, defending losses. A great Marxist historian, Eric Hobsbawm, has taught us that the class struggle in a historical level does not work as a staircase that we struggle, and achieve. Quite the opposite, as Patrick mentioned. In capitalism is gain and losses, or as Eric Hobsbawm has said, the class struggle happens in waves. There are moments of a sense in the whole world as after the war, and that there are moments where we dispute projects of the bourgeoisie, and there are moments of dissent, decline of the mass movement. And we are undergoing a great decline of the mass movements nowadays. And it is in this context that we must evaluate and reflect about how are we going to face. And as yesterday we were questioning the great question of Vladimir Villanovanin, what to do. Because using the metaphor of soccer or football that most of us appreciate, we must defeat the bourgeoisie's team. But they don't lose by themselves. It's not enough that we criticize the bourgeoisie, that we criticize the mistakes of capital. Here, I want to propose a reflection that we must make our team working great. We must improve the way the working class team plays in order to defeat the team of the bourgeoisie, as the Morocco team had done in the last championship. And now I then may bring here a reflection for us. In my place of class struggle, which is the peasant movement, which is Brazil, even though the MST in the last 2 decades have been engaged in the political struggle to face fascists, to defeat Bolsonaro, to take Lula out of prison, and to win the elections. We have engaged in political struggle. This was our priority in the last 10 years. So I'd like to share with you in the form of self-criticism and from the standpoint of Brazil, and I believe from the standpoint of Latin America as well, a few reflections of self-criticism so that we can improve our working class team. This is not a recipe or a guidebook But I may say that learning with the historical lessons of the class struggle that that are facing capitalism since the Commune of Paris in 1871, and maybe this, and probably this was the best that the French people have done, just to provoke the Europeans. So the reflections that I want to share with you are, first, the absolute priority of our organizations must be all the time, every day, all life long, the organized masses, so that the masses fight against exploitation. Marx already had commented that the mass struggle is the engine of history. And in order to organize the mass class struggle, we must previously conduct work at the grassroots, the organization of the working class in its working places, in its housing places, in its schools, and in this way, and so on and so forth. The left wing unlearn how to do grassroots work. We got deluded with the discourse proselytisms, like Danielle had told us, as of the experience of Chile. Discourse does not organize the mass the classes. It can be useful for ideological reasons, but it does not organize the masses. And without the organization of the masses, we wouldn't defeat capital. And this is the secret why we elect progressive government, and then we got deception with them. We got eluded with them. Is this the cause of the government? Is this because of the governments? No. It's because they are rich government, and that is not a counterpart of the mass organizations which should conduct the class struggle against capitalism. And we found that the class struggle, there is no capitalist government that will sustain itself. This is the reality, and this is why we in Latin America are in this situation. Every 10 years, we elect progressive governments. Then we got defeated, and then again we elect progressive, and capitalism goes on and on, accumulating and creating problems to our peoples. Secondly, we must be brave enough, have the courage to experience new ways of struggle and new instruments of organizations for the struggle. Comrade Priscilla already warned us. We all know, all continents, women and the youth are the greatest parcel of the working class. And what are the instruments that we're using to get organized, that organize the women's working class, and not the bourgeoisie that only thinks about the struggle for the abortion, to get freedom of abortion? This is not the priority of the working class. It would be good, but it's not our priority. What are the ways we're organizing youth and women working class? The left wing no longer knows how to organize the women's working class, neither the youth. The left wing is now in debt. I'm happy that our colleague mentioned the nurses' struggle, which is a working class, women's working class, basically, that they had gone on strike. I'm happy to hear about that. So we must think about that. Without women or the youth, we won't continue our mass struggle, and we won't be able to reach revolution. We old white men, we only know how to tell stories of the past. We are of the nostalgia department, and now we must create the department of the boldness. And boldness lies with women and with the youth. Third reflection. Heighten the level of awareness of class in the masses. What is the self-criticism that lies here? The left wing only can give discourses, theoretical discourses. We only know how to do proselytism. And nature was kind with us. Discourse enters this year and lives the other year. Speeches does not educate the masses. It might be a way of conducting the ideological class struggle, but we must rescue other means of raise awareness with the masses. And we are very aware, we are very convinced, according to the lessons of history, that the best way of doing agitation and propaganda is by means of culture and art, by means of music, poetry, painting, drama, theater. When you go back to your countries, you will remember more of the mystic than what I'm speaking to you now today. Because art and culture reaches the heart. And the class struggle is done with the heart, not with the mind. The mind is for the genius, for the academics. The reaction of the masses goes with the feelings against injustice, the struggle for their rights. The mass react with the heart, by the heart. If not, the university professor would be the revolutionaries of the world, and they are the worst, because they are only concerned with their own salaries and with their own well-being, and with the two laborers that they have at their homes working for them. But in their speeches, they are revolutionaries. For reflection, the political training, or the political formation of the militancy, political education. In the past, here we are, the nostalgic. In the past, all parties had school of cadre. All union had education of cadres. Any organization of the classes would have school of formation, education of the cadres. And today, how many schools of the militancy do we have? Here we are making an effort to motivate the countries to create their schools. But it's not only in the countries. Each city should have a school of the militancy. Each category, the militant is the backbone that holds the mass organization. Without the militants, there will be no change, because the militants, the activists, are the conductors of the ideology. And ideology here, yes, here we need to study, to train militants. We learn with history. We know it all with history. We depend on scientific knowledge of the history, knowledge of the classics, and social practice, class struggle. Only study creates arrogance. Only militancy creates activists, and we must have schools that gather both the practice and the theory. Fifth reflection. In the face of this current context of crisis of capitalism on the one hand and of the organizations on the other hand, the center of the class struggle today, even if we must conduct the corporate struggles for salaries, for rights, even though the center continues to be the ideological struggle. In this moment, it's not the economic struggle. It is the ideological struggle against imperialism, against colonialism. Look what we are undergoing. Look at the massacre of the Palestinians today. What is the center of the struggle is the ideology, to explain to the people if the Palestinians has right or not, while the Zionists uses media to say that Israel has the reason, has a right. So today, the center of the class struggle is the ideological struggle, and therefore our organizations must put energy, must focus on ways to conduct their ideological struggle in society, to conquer the majority. Such as Sant'Antonio Gramsci used to teach us, the second Italian saint which was not yet recognized by the Vatican. Gramsci used to say, the roles of our organizations is to dispute society so that society thinks according to the working class and not to think according to the bourgeoisie. As Marx has warned us that the bourgeoisie is dominant not only because it has the capital, it is dominant, it's domineering because it dominates the minds of the working class. So therefore, we must put our efforts, our energy in the social media, in television, in the newspapers, in the arts, to dispute our project of society together with the majority of society. And finally, as well as being part of the self-criticism, as well as part of the lessons of history, is that to improve, and in order to improve our team, this is the pedagogy of the example of the leadership. It is we that consider ourselves leadership that are here that we must give the example to the militancy. In the day-to-day, there's no point in apologizing socialism if you're not doing our day-to-day in this way, if you're not the first in the working line and the last in the feeding line. We, the leaders, we educate people with our example. And if we have a negative example, we are giving a backwards service to the working class. But on the other hand, if our life example has dignity, then we are offering with the pedagogy of example, creating other cadres. Why is it that we love so much Fidel and Che, Stevie Biko, and so many other fighters? Because they lived the lives exactly the way they think. It was not about what their discourse. It was about what their lives were like. So here comes the lesson for all of us. For the leadership lies the pedagogy of the example. And here I conclude my speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Comrade João Pedro, for this very important speech. You mentioned a set of very important points and ideas. The answer of the Lenin question, what to do? The answer is, let's go to work. We should start now. We should continue. We should start building ourselves. The organizations and parties should build their internal cadre. We need to build the cadre. We need leaders. We need popular training schools. We need to train the comrades. Can you hear the interpretation? This is an interpretation test. Can you hear the interpretation? Comrades, in Portuguese, yes. As I said, we need to start the work. We need to start the action. We are facing the capitalist machine on all fronts. We must be in all the struggle fronts. We must be in the art, in the culture, and the feminism, and the masses. And this requires us to train our cadre, to build and develop ourselves, and train political leaders who are able to channel the struggles of the mass and to frame them. So these comrades were for interventions that we have in this panel. Now we open the floor to a Q&A session for the comrades. We wish to give all of the comrades the floor, but due to the time constraints, we will take 4 or 5 questions from the floor. I would like from the comrades first to present themselves, their organization, and the country before they make their intervention. Greetings, وجاه الأدهم from the movement نستطيع in Mauritania and member of the General Union of the Work Inspectors. I have 2 comments. The first comment is related to the conditions of the worker class in the North Africa region. The General Secretary of NUMSA invited Comrade Ali Janlouli to visit China to see the experience. I speak from my working position, and I see all of the workers working in Chinese companies from Senegal, from different African countries. So if the United States and capitalists companies are robbing us through conventions, Chinese companies are robbing us 2 times through the agreements and through the salaries and the workers' rights. So they do not provide the necessary requirements of professional safety and health safety, as well as salaries. Who claim socialism and who claim to walk the path of the left, they need to lead by example, and they need to be supportive of the working class. I'm not being prejudiced, giving prejudices against China, but this is the reality that I am seeing in Mauritania. And this is the conditions that tens of thousands of workers who are suffering and who wanted imperialism to fall and who wanted to see the Chinese economy and Chinese companies as an alternative to the imperial European and American companies. This is the first point. The second point, the working class in the previous times was or had more solidarity and had more linkages between the struggles. But the irony today, we're speaking out of a statement that we have. A boy is not who says, this is my father, a boy who says, this is me. And then he can become a man. So we should speak about the moment. What did the movements and organizations provide to the working class? What did we provide to all the working classes all over the world? And how did we link our struggles in favor of the working class? I believe that our work in linking the working class struggles between the different countries of the world is still weak. In the inspection of companies, we have a principle. We never start the inspection in the management office. We start the inspection in the facilities of the workers, where the workers truly work, and then we end by visiting the management facility. Therefore, before we visit China, we need to visit the Chinese companies in Africa and see the conditions of the worker in these companies, and then we can go to China and make the comparison. Thank you. Thank you, comrade. I would like to remind the comrades to present themselves and the organization and the country. Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the comrades who shared with us their experiences. My name is Corey, and I am from Iraq. I am the head of the mechanics and printer press Union and the Metal Workers Union. So this is a union under which all of these sectors fall. I would like, first of all, to give or to talk about Comrade Irvin and the experience of South Africa in terms of the struggle against the apartheid. In Iraq, we are engaging in a struggle similar to a struggle, which is related to sectarianism and the multiple militias and the proliferation of weapons in Iraq. In the past, we were governed by a dictatorship. Saddam Hussein was a dictator. When he started massacring the communists and the different persons from the left movement. We have seen mass graves and prisons allocated for the communists and socialists under the nose and eyes of the UN. When the UN came to visit the prisons in Iraq, Saddam Hussein massacred and slaughtered the communists. Tens of mass graves with thousands of Iraqis. Many of them are comrades. And these mass graves still exist. Some of the left then thought that Saddam Hussein was against imperialism, knowing that imperialism, the American and British imperialism, brought Saddam Hussein's regime when he made a coup against the revolution of 14th of July, which evicted colonization from Iraq and repealed many of the colonial agreements. Saddam Hussein came and said, we don't need a working class. Saddam said, we need employees. We are wealthy. We don't need struggles. And he dismantled all the unions. Knowing that in Iraq, we had an industrial and a strong industrial and agricultural sector. But in Saddam's regime, we had neither industry nor agriculture. And he was instructed by the US to invade Kuwait and to invade Iran. This is how imperialism works. Now we are in the post-Saddam Hussein struggle. Imperialism came filled with political Islam and ISIS, Daesh. When the American tanks arrived to Iraq, they also banned unions because they know that if unions exist, we will have a class struggle, and they don't want that. They stopped our work. We are struggling for the freedom of union work. The political Islam came with the haram and halal. They ban everything. The struggles are banned, discussions or debates are banned, everything is banned. Only they advocate for their own ideas. Since 2011 until 2019, we are in an uprising. Call it the Arab Spring, call it anything, but this has been brought by the US and aborted by the political Islam. Iran, considered as an anti-imperialist force, is also subject to such efforts for occupation. We don't have agriculture, we don't have industry, we are only importing. As trade union activists, we are threatened with imprisonment, with exile. I have been exiled by Saddam Hussein in '79. I went to many countries. I fled to Sweden. When Saddam regime fell, I returned to Iraq. Few months, 5 Kabul person came into my house, killed my husband, tortured him, stabbed him until he died. Why? Because he was a trade union activist. He called for better conditions for workers. But I hold the message, and I will continue the struggle. I appreciate the support from our comrades from Brazil and from South Africa. And I call upon you to stand with us in our calling and training us as trade union activists. I left my children in Sweden so that I returned to Iraq. I struggled 10 months in Baghdad, but I returned for 2 months with my children. Yesterday, I was talking with Stephanie, Comrade Stephanie, telling her I exploit imperialism sometimes. I go to Sweden to get healthcare and then return to Iraq. I don't have a house. I am Iraqi, and I don't have a house. Few months ago, a police officer accused me of being a Zionist and threw me out. Why? Because I am supportive of women workers. In Iraq, we have women and child labor. Thousands of women are working in quarries. They are working in quarries without the minimum workers' rights. When they no longer can work, they get them married, so that they are provided with a home. In very young ages, they get pregnant, they deliver children, and their children go to work. So I call upon you to support the Iraqi unions. We are against political Islam because they are claiming to be democratic and against imperialism, but they are truly imperialist. Our money is stolen every day, and it's taken to the USA. America amended its 2008 economic crisis using our money after it occupied us. Thank you very much. I direct my call to our comrades from South Africa and from Brazil, and I give you the shield of the trade union of Iraq. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Korea. We give the floor to another speaker. Good morning, comrades from all organizations and parties. My name is Mithqal Abu Ali. I am the coordinator of the Agriculture Union in Jordan. That includes local workers, refugees, and migrant workers. Our affiliates count more than 1,000. 80% of them are women working in the agricultural sector who do not know anything about their rights and enjoy no rights. They get only 5 Jordanian dinars on a daily basis, less than $2 per hour. This is what they know. They don't have leaves, they don't have social insurance, they don't get sick leaves, they don't enjoy any rights. We can talk, but there are two kinds of talk. There are talks that are very beneficial, that need to be said, and that is very important to clarify what is being said. And the second type is propaganda used by the bourgeoisie and used by the imperialism to mobilize people through soap operas, through religion, through politics, and so on and so forth. All means are used by imperialists who work closely with the workers, know what they suffer, from. They are great teachers. If we listen to them, we will learn a lot. regardless of the level of education or awareness. We need to coexist. We need to go to them. We need to hear from them. We need to hear their agonies, their dreams, their reality, the reality of the working class. How do they sleep? How do they live? How do they eat? We need to do that in order to learn from them, or else we can never organize them. The ideological speeches will get us so far. This is the reality. I don't want to talk in general terms. I want to talk about what we've did in 2024. We want the 1,000 to become 2,000, the affiliates. This is first. Second, last year, we had 5 literacy classes. This is a good effort. We cannot develop a cadre while they are illiterate. Next year, we've set a goal, which is to organize 10 literacy classes. Maybe we will not be successful, but this is our objective, to have 10 literacy classes implemented. Also, the Women International Day. This is a tradition, a mandatory tradition in Jordan. Every year, 8th of March, we organize celebrations, festivals, meetings, gatherings. Also, 21st of March, we had the first victory of the Palestinian resistance with the Jordanian army. This was the first defeat of the Israeli Defense Force. Also, the Earth Day. We do celebrate annually the Earth Day on the 30th of March. In 1976, when tens of Palestinian resistance have been martyred by the Zionists, that's the day, the 13th of March. That's called the Earth Day. There is also a mission that we have, which is to develop the middle structures of the syndicate, the trade union, through the support of the establishment of the committee workers in every village, town and city. Democracy can never be achieved unless we involve the masses, unless we build a basis for our unions. Without that, we will never see a new leadership. We cannot see new leadership by having obedient cadre. No. The cadre, the leaders develop through struggles, through those who are in front, through those who mobilize more people during these events. I don't want to speak long, but I know that many of the struggles that we didn't know in Jordan were learned through practice. Women farmers didn't know about them. Women farmers this year went to the Ministry of Workers and made a sit-in order to see an act that regulates their work promulgated. There was also a sit-in in front of the House of Representatives in Jordan and presented a memorandum, after which the Ministry of Labor was instructed to negotiate with the women workers on this. So this is our Jordanian experience in a nutshell, and I can tell you more about our struggle in this framework later. Thank you very much.
رفيق مثقل نمر مباشرة لمتدخل آخر.
You comrade. Turbina.
Bom dia. Meu nome é Carlos Rogério Nunes.
Good morning. I'm Rogério Nunes. I'm the Secretary of Social Movements of the Brazilian Central of Trade Unions. We are part of this international meeting to help building the alternative proposed by this Dilemmas of the Humanity seminar. And we want to highlight from this panel the role of the organization of workers since the beginning of the capitalist system, since its beginnings in England, where the working class was formed first to fight the political struggle, since the creation of trade unions in English until the broader struggles. And unions and union confederations could be only fighting for better pay, but we want something new. We want to change society. And today, in the 21st century, we realize that capitalist system cannot answer the needs of the people, of the workers. There is a productive restructuring going on, and thousands of workers are unemployed. Others have precarious jobs, and they do not have a way of organizing. They do not have their own organizations. What we see today in society is that there are the formally employed workers, and there are the workers who are unorganized and not formally under contract. In this international plenary, we must agree on the effort of organizing all sectors of the working class in different fronts, in organizations, through unions, through associations, to fight for the socialist alternative. Us who are part of the unions who share a working class ideology, we want an alternative for the capitalist system. We want to change society. We are part of this international seminar to bring our contribution, to bring our strength here, for us to fight for a new society. Long live the unity of the working class, long live socialism.
Greetings, comrades. My name is Nkambula Nontetselelo from the People's United Democratic Movement in Swaziland. Being a young person from a country that is still fighting for a mere right to form our own government, a government for the people, I would say I agree with Comrade Joe that each and every day the MTM is declining. And that is not because people don't want socialism or what, but it is because we have always spent our energy in lamenting on the ills of capitalism when it is just what they are. Exploitation is the mere role of capitalism, and we cannot forever lament on that. But we need to take a solid stand to implement what we are always discussing and agreeing upon. It is time, comrades, that we understand that our people are forever in fear of the capitalist. Being from a country whereby every day can be your last day on earth has taught me that our people are scared to live in this system whereby everything has been weaponized, starting from the education system to job opportunities and more other things. But comrades, I want to quote what Comrade Fred Membe once said, when he said we need to define socialism in the terms that our people are going to understand, which is shelter for everyone, relevant and quality education which is accessible for everyone, adequate and clean water for everyone, and the sharing of our resources. Our people have been fed the propaganda of capitalism on what socialism and communism is. They don't know our definition for socialism and communism. And it is time, comrades, that we make this conference a resolution that we are going to implement whatever that we're going to agree upon here. And we make it a point that the people get access to whatever program that we have. It is time, comrades, that we have community-based cells whereby we are going to teach our own kids and our own youth of the society that we want, so that before the capitalists come and brainwash our kids, we have already done it. Thank you.
Compañeras, mi nombre es Iván González. Soy de la Confederación Sindical de Trabajadores y Trabajadoras de las Américas.
I'm with the I'm Venezuelan. I want to thank the panel for
that Eva, Peter, Priscilla, and João Pedro, they allow us to confront the challenge that we have, and that we propose ourselves to create a just and solidarity project for the working class. The complexity of the multiple crises of capitalism and the different visions that we need to create is to take that what doesn't work in the realities that we face in our countries, and is to continue building the agenda and the role of the working class in this process. I'm grateful to Irvin and Peter for locating the trade union struggle and the working class in Africa, South Africa, and Europe. And Priscilla and João Pedro, I would like to appreciate their reminders and the memory of the promise that we have with our dear comrade, Farid. You know, there are many challenging reflections that we have, and it's maybe not the space to go to deepen those reflections. But I wanted to ask Peter, basically, with the analysis of the critics of the issues with the social democratic society, with trade unions in Europe, what responsibility would we say, what is our responsibility as unions, as parties, do we have in terms of there's a retreat ideologically in Europe and the advance of the ultra-right and fascist governments? What did we stop doing as a trade union so that Europe can right now be the center of a conservative and fascist agenda, inclusive in many places, Nazis, that justifies and goes against our projects of socialism? And to Comrade João Pedro, aside from agreeing with a lot of what you propose to us as an agenda, with the challenges that we have for the organization of the class and the diversity and the realities that we have in this time with the working class in our region and in the world. João Pedro, in Latin America, we have a tradition of unity that's very important, and with concrete results of that union within the social movements and also with the parties. The last united fight that we developed in the Latin American continent was the fight against ARCA in 2005. In this moment, João Pedro, what would be the challenge in our unity and the diversity that we have as a movement, as trade union organizations, popular organizations, feminist organizations, to challenge capitalism and the conservative agenda in our region? What are the tasks that the unity of the movements require from us in this moment that is different from the anterior times, but challenge us just as they did then to now? Thank you.
Good morning, Good afternoon, comrades. And this is Arun from Sri Lanka, representing the People's Liberations Front, also known as JVP. Let me give a small introduction about my party. We faced two armed struggles, which were not our choice, yet we had to fight the imperial system. But once we got into the democratic politics from 1994, we were having some successful elections. But nonetheless, what we have to understand is the capitalist class is always well organized. They are well organized. So in Sri Lanka, like other countries, we had two major capitalist parties which were ruling the country vice versa. And at one point, the people started to get fed up of the system. As you know, Sri Lanka faced bankruptcy in the recent past. People were on the streets. There were no fuel. There were no electricity. There were no constant electricity. Still, there is medical shortages. So the people started to get onto the streets, and they had to fight for their rights. Meantime, we as a political party, we are very proud that we were capable enough to organize the working class in the country up to a very certain extent, because we have a very strong farmers union, we have a very strong students union, also youth union. So we organized a series of mass protests, including the teachers, workers, everybody all got together, and they started to fight for their rights. As you know, the Sri Lanka government is going towards a very fascist direction for a very long time. And Sri Lanka elected one of its most ruthless fascist leader in the recent past. It was in 2019. Especially after the Easter attack, we had a series of suicide bombings, and with that the Islamophobia built, and then the people wanted a strong leader to protect the majority of the country. But people had their choice, they did not choose us, yet the president was put into power, but within a very short time, he was unable to fulfill his promises to the people. So what happened? People got onto the streets, they started to fight for their rights, and at one point, we have to take this instance as a good example. People, they got onto the streets, they had weeks and weeks and weeks of series of protest, and finally, the people raided the presidential palace, the people raided the presidential secretariat, the people raided the prime minister's office, and they occupied. We would like to tell that there was an election that was supposed to be held after this series of protests, and what they did was something unexpected in the Sri Lankan politics. But as a left movement, as a Marxist-Leninist party, we had this idea that they will go up to any extent to safeguard them, to safeguard the class. But we never expected that to happen in our generation. What they did was they had to get together with the IMF. And also, when it comes to the present president at the moment, he had only one seat in the parliament, who was a very, 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 historical rival of that 5-6 majority political party. But he was appointed as the prime minister by that president. And after he flew away from Sri Lanka, this particular man, who never had any mandate of the people, became the president. I mean, this is something, the audience, this is something, the forum, this is something all of us should understand. That class is very organized. So yet, we did not give up our hopes. We fought. In the meantime, we organized a very huge mass movement called National People's Power, which gained the support of the people, especially from the minority areas also, which was devastated by the war. But we were able to win the hearts of the people, and we were marching towards an election, and the people wanted a system change, and we were ready to give that system change. Now what happened? Dear comrades, they went up to the extent to postpone the elections indefinitely, telling that there are no ample funds to hold the elections. Of course, we know there are no medicines. I mean, now what they are trying to do is, in order to fulfill some stocks in the market, what they are trying to do is they are trying to privatize. And so they are trying to manage the fuel and other shortages. But yet, what is happening is, they are preventing the system change taking place at whatever the maximum cost that they can provide. They are doing that. So I think this journey is not easy. But what I would like to tell that is, we are united now, despite of the differences that we have. Especially, what I would say is now, if we can change this in the region, that will give a very big hope to the region. Now what they are doing is now, with the support of IMF, they are bringing these tax bills. They are imposing very unethical taxes towards the people, the working class people. They are taking the hard-earned ETF, the provident funds from the people, which they are not getting that particular outcome that they are supposed to get. So that is taken. And also, now what they are trying to do is, now with the support of social media, as the people are getting together and they are organizing something, now they are trying to control the social media by imposing very ruthless laws in the parliament. And they have the mandate for that because they were elected by the people. So also we have to understand this, election system has an issue. Once it appoints some party for a period, then they are there. But also, when that particular system or when that particular class is having issues, when the capitalist class is having issues, what they are doing is they are even going to the extent to postpone the elections indefinitely. So, dear comrades, the ruling class is organized, despite of whatever the crisis that they have, despite of whatever the disparities what they have, they are united. For us to march towards a very just society, for us to march towards a very reasonable society, for us to march towards gender equal society, for us to march towards a very good society which provides health care to everybody, education to everybody. We have to have this radical change take place as early as possible. We are committed for that. And as what Lenin said, we have to understand one thing. Rather than organizing ourselves, we don't have any other options. The organizing part is inevitable, and we request all of you all to join hand with us. Let us march towards a better society for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, comrade. Now we will move to the last intervener and would like to ask the comrade to respect time. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, comrades. My name is Buka Ngesa Omole. I'm from the Communist Party of Kenya. That is the eastern part of Africa. And I have a few remarks. Maybe majority of you know that the government in Kenya, of course, is a Comprado government. But I want to give a few remarks on today's session. Also in reference to the last regional conference that we had here, that probably could help us to clarify a few things in terms of moving forward in building unity. Particularly from the Communist Party of Kenya, we strongly undertake that unity is a product of the struggle. And even any difference that we see here, that we have different conceptions of things, and our struggle for unity has to be a permanent struggle, because divisions among communists generally cannot be reduced only to squabbles among family members or friends, but it must be looked at as difference in ideas, either those that have the right revolutionary line and an emergence of reactionary ideas within the organizations. Why did I say that? Because in the last regional conference, I got to participate in the battle of ideas. And one of the things that could then be, help us to build unity, that the battle of ideas among the revolutionary organizations or communist within the Communist Party maybe should be more intense than the battle of ideas with our outright enemy. In that way, then we could reach certain, we could reach certain sections of the unit in terms of our, struggle, especially in the absence of the vanguard of the proletariat working class at the moment. Now, having said that, the second comment I wanted to make, which I have had yesterday and today, I think yesterday were comrades from Tunisia, and today were comrades from Mauritania. And probably they undertook the position that, China is an imperialist country. Okay, fair enough. But our question in this Dilemma of Humanities conference must be what should be the attitude of the left towards China, and what is China's role in terms of constructions of the world socialism. And maybe without going too much to the classics, also we should understand the laws of contradictions. In terms of constructions of the global world socialism, for us in the Communist Party of Kenya, we strongly undertake that the primary contradiction is United States imperialism, in whose ruins a new society must be built. Now, if you want to say primarily that there is an emergence of Chinese imperialism, then between the classic imperialism and Chinese imperialism, which is primary, and what should be our attitude? And even in terms of talking about Chinese, if you're talking about Chinese capital in Africa, you want to tell us that 10%, just an equivalent of 10% in terms of the general uptake in the capital in Africa, then you must not confuse the outright primary enemy and those that we should form tactical alliances to advance our struggle. When we are doing analysis in Kenya, for example, we have outright enemies, the Comprado class. Sometimes we form tactical alliances to advance the struggle of the Kenyan working class. Should we then be prisoners of dogma or Puritan movement to try and pass a judgment based on absolute truths? Or then we must then advance based on advancing world socialism? So the debate on the characteristics of Chinese socialism, I think we could continue to learn it through interacting with the Chinese brothers and sisters or Chinese comrades. After all, in the several resolutions of the previous congresses of the Chinese Communist Party, there have been a lot of reflections on their own self-criticism that we cannot hold them responsible for not, their mistakes before. And then, finally, my comment from the Communist Party of Kenya, of course, is the theory of knowledge. Indeed, we have also had yesterday's contributions and today's contribution to undertone that we should know that we already know that all knowledge, at least, comes from experience and practice. So it basically means that the ideological, there is an emergence everywhere in Africa. There is a need for an ideological school. But we also hope that those ideological schools could be connected to either communist parties or organizations so that those ideas within those schools can be confirmed. Because we also believe that those liberals, particularly within Africa, that are attending those ideological schools without organizations, are not going to advance the struggle, but maybe to talk clever in conferences and do such kind of things. And finally, maybe an intervention on coups are not just coups. Because we are holding this conference at the background of what the United States degenerating empire is telling us, that there are some coups happening in Africa. My intervention from the Communist Party of Kenya is in solidarity with what we call the popular coups. In fact, we support the coups in Burkina Faso. We support the coups in Mali. We support all the coups that are yet to happen in Africa that enjoys the popular support of the people. Comrades, why we say that? Because the hypocrisy of the United States by telling us that we need democratic government, liberal democracy. But in actual sense, they did not condemn the coup in Chad. They did not condemn the coup in Libya. They did not condemn any coup that supports the degenerating Western empire. We just remind the dominance class in the global north, particularly in the United States, that the United States empire is degenerating. Choose how they want to fall. Do they want to fall in humiliation or in dignity? But it's inevitable, the empire is falling. Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا لكل الرفاق والرفيقات المتدخلين والمتدخلات.
Dear comrades, for your interventions, I would like to give the floor to my comrades to reply to the raised questions. 3 minutes per intervention. Let's start with our comrade Irvin Jim.
Comrade, you can see there's a coup here. They've removed the podium. I think that on the debate about China, our suggestion is that we were not, our comrades from Tunis, they're very relaxed about the suggestion we made, because we were not saying they must just go to China, then they will come back and say this. But I think one of the things that we're clear about when it comes to China is that there are a couple of things that China is doing that are not happening anywhere else. In China, you have got a state that is intervening in the economy on behalf of Chinese people. In China, you got a state out of that intervention of building the economy. You can be walked in detail of how they have reduced inequalities. Our country here, South Africa, is #1 in the world in terms of inequalities. One of the things that we look at, which we have called for, was that this country is rich, it's got minerals, this continent is rich, it's got minerals. We have been campaigning that we must nationalize all commanding heights of the economy. We must take ownership and control of those minerals on behalf of the people, make sure that they are beneficiated, they are diversified, and if there are minerals which you think that they are strategic for building your economy in South Africa and to building the economies of the continent, you can take a decision that on these minerals, I'm not going to allow a situation where they are exported. And therefore, you can invite those who want to come and invest to come and invest in your own country, and you can create quality jobs, you can industrialize, you can build an inclusive economy, you can have a serious dent on poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. In China, you will come across a state that is acting in the interest of its own people. What I'm not aware of is whether Chinese companies that are here, when they are here in South Africa, we simply organize them and so that we make sure that any company ensures that workers' benefits conditions are in line with our own laws in South Africa. I didn't come across with an understanding that CPC is going to deal with all Chinese companies, that wherever they go, they must practice socialism. No, I'm just saying, I have not come across. And therefore, any company that is in our land, that company must be organized. If at all that company happen to say, look, we clear about benefits and conditions, we think that will be okay. Now, I think that's what I want to say about China. And what I was just saying, we walked in China, we visited China a couple of times. The levels of poverty you see in this country, people sleeping in the street, children under cardboards and so forth, which you will see here in South Africa. you will see nothing of that sort in China. I have not seen that. We're busy organizing what we call Red Brigade. That is, we're taking shop stewards of NUMSA to visit, and you go to museum, you see Chinese people, how they preserve their struggles, how they walk you through to what they have gone through under Japanese imperial attack during that war and so forth. What we're talking about here of a cultural revolution and where they teach, we have experienced that. And I'm not saying, let's say, China is 100%, but I'm just saying, I think let's learn what is happening in China. Let's debate what is happening in China. To take a blanket approach as a political posture against China, I would argue and differ with that. I don't think that that's scientific. So the reason why I was saying let's take a trip is because we debated this question in where we were. We were in the last meeting of the IPA. We were in Nepal. There was a robust debate on this question. And that's why I was saying that maybe we need to visit China so that when we debate from concrete condition, move from theory to practice. On the question of Iraq and what has been raised about trade unions, generally our own experience is that the bosses and bourgeois states, their alliance with the capitalist class has always been anti-worker, has always been union bashing, and trade unions are voluntary organizations. They must organize workers to build their own trade unions as a weapon to fight back. The experience in South Africa, the ANC was banned in 1960. Communists were the first to be banned in 1950 in South Africa. It was the Communist Party of South Africa that was banned. And therefore, there's always been an anti-communist. Our struggle is to fight against that. I mean, it is also true, though, that all difficult tasks in the revolution that were executed to liberate this country, communists were in the forefront. I mean, they sacrificed the most, they gave their best. Comrade Chris Hani died, in fact, on the eve of election. It took the killing of a communist by a Turk from Poland who came and shot Chris Hani because he was very resolute. He was very clear that he was for struggle for socialism, and nice offices, parliament was not impressing him. He vowed that he was to remain with the working class and mobilize the working class for socialism. And he was very loved by the working class. He was most feared by the capitalist class. And those thugs, they didn't sleep, they plotted, they shot him. Out of his death, we secured a date for having elections against a very brutal, vicious apartheid regime. And it's very complex, the issue of Iraq, but what I can say, one of the things that you must do, comrades, we are here as the IPA, we have assembled all of us here. I don't know, it's nice to socialize and dance at night. Can we clap hands? But socializing must not take over the strategic role of having bilaterals among ourselves. From yesterday to today, we must begin a very serious process. That this is a platform, this is an opportunity for us to consolidate our solidarity, our joint program. We must know each other better. It's very rare that we could assemble all continents like we have done here. This is a unique moment. And therefore, I'm saying we must know each other, because as a union, we have got a duty and a responsibility. We've got a Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party that we have catalyzed. You played a role in building that party. Its leadership is here. We must have bilaterals, because as a union, we promote worker-to-worker conduct. As a union, we promote union-to-union conduct. As a union, we believe that solidarity is the only way to go, because united we stand, divided we fall. For us, it makes us strong. And therefore, there is an opportunity here to network and to continue to build our struggle. At the point of victory in 1994, the working class in this country was very organized. We were very organized. We were very strong. But we were demobilized. How were we demobilized? We were demobilized by corporatist institutions. If you're talking about the history of this country, an injury to one used to be an injury to all. If you fire a worker in the morning, at 11 o'clock, all workers will tool down and embark on a strike. But when the Labor Relations Act of 1995 was finally crafted at the back of our struggle, workers can no longer embark on a strike in solidarity for another worker. They must now do a referral. That's English. A referral instead of tooling down. There's an institution called CCMA where you go and take your case. It will take 3 months. Workers' production is running in the factory. In the olden days, workers used to tool down and embark on a strike and say to shop stewards, go and call management. They must come and tell us now we are on lunch, why have they fired things? They must come and tell us. And then it will be for the whole day management speaking English trying to explain. Workers are not standing up, are not going back to work. They say it's a strike. Workers are saying it's not a strike. We are affording you an opportunity to tell us why have you fired our comrade. Can we clap hands for solidarity of workers? Now, that has been undermined.
Comrade Jim, I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much.
شكرا جزيلا. رفيقة أنا.
Ok. Vou primeiro agradecer pelas
First, I'd like to thank you for all the questions and interventions here. We're not answering questions, we're learning and exchanging experiences around what we are building. Around the debate on China, I think it's important for us to have it present that China is a very important element in breaking with the unipolar world created by U.S. imperialism. But we should not expect China to be responsible for every people's liberation process. We know that each people is responsible for their own place, for their own people. Although China is very important in building a multipolar world or challenge from the perspective of the workers is to build a world without poles at all. But that will only be possible through the organization of the working class. We shouldn't expect China to deliver answers to our suffering or to our questions. Iranians. I would like to show my solidarity, express my solidarity towards our comrade in Iraq. She talked about the armed militia that are oppressing people and women. We have something similar, although different, very complicated in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, with the presence of armed militias. The occupation of the territory there has been taking lives of children. Women are having to bury their children. They're losing their freedom. And that comes along with a very conservative ideology from the Pentecostal churches in Brazil. These are combined oppressions resulting from militarization. Militarization around the world has been a tool of oppression, and I wanted to express our solidarity. And whenever someone is suffering under militarization, we are also not free. The other comrade brought the story of the women organizing, working women organizing in his country. It's important to understand that the sexual division of labor makes so that women around the world have to face more precarity in their jobs, even more than men. And that model that has women as its main, at its center, can also reach other workers. If we remember those women who sold cosmetics, that was something that has created the conditions for the phenomenon of Uberizing of labor around the globe. So it's important to look at what is happening to women, to understand what is going to be implemented to all workers next. And we all know that the neoliberal project is not good for us. Neoliberal right-wing parties, they are in difficulties to win elections. They radicalize and they go to the far right, to conservatism, because they have to use our prejudices, otherwise they would not win elections as mere neoliberals. That's why it's important to understand that feminist struggles are important, that the struggle against homophobia is important, because those topics will be weaponized against the working class around the world. I have to disagree with my comrade Stadili, because around abortion, because the women who are dying from abortion are the poor women, not the rich ones who can pay for it. Rural women are dying from illegal, unsafe abortions. And I want to agree with him in another point. How do we combine theory and practice? That is very important. When we talk about solidarity, about international solidarity against transnational corporations, we have to talk also about the solidarity we are building through social movements in our regions. That's what we have built across Latin America. When we talk about poisoned food and the people are dying from hunger, they're starving, we can bring together our comrades from the rural areas, from the movements, from the peasant movements, to bring food to the cities. Finally, our comrade from Swaziland was talking about many things important, on how we define our socialism, but she talked about the defense of the commons, of the land, of the water. And also our comrade from CSA Venezuela talked about what unites us today is still the struggle against imperialism and their attack against our self-determination, our commons and our lives. And that is at the base of our possibility of getting organized. The United States organizes the coups also in our territories, and we must be organized against that.
Yeah, very briefly about the question of the trade unions in Europe. Of course, in 1991, when the Soviet Union disappeared, with the counter-revolution in 1991, it had a dramatic effect. Of course, that is true. You cannot underestimate the effect of the collapse of the Soviet Union, also on the ideological level, but also on the level of the labor relations in all of Europe. There is a link between neoliberalism and the collapse of the Soviet Union. Of course, it is important to know, and between brackets, I think if we are discussing on China, we must take that in consideration, because we have seen what was the effect of the Soviet Union. Maybe you can, some people thought this about the Soviet Union, and other people thought that about the Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, it was a problem for all of us. And it will be a problem if China's socialism won't live anymore. It will be a big problem, and we can be creative. So that's the first thing. Second, I do agree that there is a responsibility of the European left. Of course, there is after 91 in the trade unions and in the parties it became pragmatical, and the cadres formation. I do agree. The ideology formation in the trade union movement, it became all pragmatic. It became not ideological anymore. But what I don't agree is this actual situation. I live in a city where between 25 and 45% of the votes for extreme rights in a port city in Antwerp. I know a lot of dock workers. I know we have a good dock workers section. And between the dock workers, there is a struggle between fascist party and our party. And I only can say, if we are convinced of our struggle, if we wage this struggle with butter and bread issues, with very concrete issues, if we are convinced and if we are present on the work floor, we can win. I do not agree with those they say, yes, okay, there's a fascist between in the working class. So what? What do we have to do? Do we have to retreat? Do we have to make comment? No, we have to be there on the work, because we are right. We are right. We can win. The fascist is a counter-revolutionary movement. The fascist is anti-working class in disguise. And that, they will listen, working class will listen, if you are present among them. So, on the mid-long term, I'm hopeful, even for the working class in Europe, I'm hopeful if the left and the trade unions in Europe will be present among the working class, and we'll have this message of socialism and hope.
شكرا جزيلا رفيق. نعطي الكلمة للرفيق جو بيدرو.
Oi, vou fazer 3 comentários.
Hi, I have 3 comments.
Como disse a Priscila,
As
nós estamos aqui
Priscilla was saying, we are here to
não para
comment
responder.
on what you said and not to answer questions.
Nós vamos encontrar
The
nos
answers,
nossos
well,
países,
we'll find them,
nossa
back to when we
luta
go back to our countries in our
Mas
concrete
entre os
struggles.
comentários,
But
primeiro quero me referir a esse esforço que o
the
companheiro
different
da Jordânia
comments,
falou.
I want to refer to what our comrade from Jordan said. As popular movements, we have to take up the task of the literacy of the workers. Few governments are interested in that, even in Brazil, where we have 14 million illiterate people. The government is not interested. And who is doing the literacy work? Us. I want to call your attention for the fact that in Cuba, they have developed a method called Yes, I Can, that is available in every language. We are using that in Brazil. We were able to put an end to illiteracy in many municipalities. We are sharing the method with our partners or comrades from the Socialist Party of Zambia. and with our comrades in Haiti who are also doing literacy work. So whoever can develop, whoever is interested in developing literacy programs, we have here our comrades from Martin Luther King Center in Cuba. Talk to them. There's our comrade there. Go talk to her. I'm sure she will commit to share with you their methodology and their program. Second, our comrade Ivan
colocou tema que é qual a nossa unidade política na luta de classe.
What is our political unity in class struggle? What is my comment on that?
Esse tema vai perpassar os 4 dias da nossa conferência. Nós vamos voltar a ele amanhã, depois da manhã, no último dia, que é contra o imperialismo e a soberania. Agora, nesse painel, ainda não estamos debatendo o que vai nos unificar na luta política, na tática da luta. Agora, me somo à companheira. Eu acho que centro da nossa tática política, porque na minha fala anterior, eu fiquei preocupado em refletir quais os desafios organizativos internos que a nossa classe tem. Quais os problemas que nós temos para superar as nossas organizações. Agora, sobre a tática política que pode nos unificar, eu argumentarei no futuro. Eu acho, concordando com a Priscila, que é a luta anti-imperialista. Só que a luta anti-imperialista não é apenas discurso.
But anti-imperialist struggle is not about a speech against the United States government.
É isso que teremos que discutir. Quais as formas concretas de enfrentar o imperialismo nos nossos países? E eu acredito que as formas concretas é lutar contra as empresas transnacionais.
And I believe the concrete form of struggle is fighting transnational corporations. And let's include the transnational Chinese corporations. Whenever they come to our countries to exploit us, they will be imperialists too. This is different from building an alliance with the Chinese Communist Party and with their policies, because there are transnational companies, capitalist transnational companies in China. So fighting every transnational corporation, fighting the dollar. The US dollar is the weapon of the empire to exploit us all. It's very important that the BRICS countries have proposed removing the dollar from financial transactions. So fighting the US dollar is important. Fighting the US military bases and fighting weapons. We must be against the war that the imperialists are promoting. And finally, I want to say we have to be pessimistic, as the classics tell us, in analyzing the reality and their path towards the future. We have to be optimistic because we know capitalism can solve the problems of humanity, and that's why we must share our optimism with the masses so they have the hope of fighting to defeat capitalism, and that shall happen, and the next generations will see it happening.
شكرا جزيلا رفيق. أريد أن أشكر مجددا الرفيقة والرفاق المتحدثين
all the speakers today because they made very important speeches.
كل الرفيقات والرفاق الحاضرين في من خلال هذه الندوة. سنقدم
We will present gifts to our comrades.
ستقوم اللجنة التنظيمية بتقديم بعض الهدايا للرفاق
Provide some gifts to our comrades.
فنصفق جميعا لكل
Let's applaud together for our comrades.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
إذن الرفيقات والرفاق.
So, comrades,
الرفيقات والرفاق المرجو عدم مغادرة القاعة.
comrades, please don't leave this place because we're gonna announce some announcements.
تلي الرفيقات والرفاق سأقوم بإعطاء في اللحظة التي يلتقط فيها الرفاق.
Right now, I'm gonna tell you about the announcement while our comrades take pictures.
والرفيقات الذين سيتوجهون في السيمينار لورشة السيادة الغذائية.
For the panel discussion for the food sovereignty, please keep your translation devices. The other comrades, please return the translation devices. Another thing,
سيكون هناك صفين، صف خاص بالرفاق والرفيقات من
there will be two lines.
أن يأخذوا هوياتهم الشخصية.
One for the South African comrades to get their identities, and the other one will be for comrades outside of South Africa to get their passports. Except for our comrades that are going to the food sovereignty panel, they need to keep their translating devices. For the food sovereignty panel, for the food issue, please follow your colors in your patches. For the comrades that have special food preferences, there's a new place to have lunch. I'm sorry.
شكرا جزيلا رفيقات ورفاق.
Thank you, comrades. Thank you so much.